Hello and welcome to The Urbanist, Monocle's programme all about the built environment. I'm your host, Andrew Tuck. On this episode, we take a whirlwind trip around the world to revisit some of our favourite interviews and reports from the year. From urban events in Vienna and Istanbul, to leaders from California and the Emirates, and green city initiatives in Denver and Milan. That's all ahead in the next 30 minutes, right here on The Urbanist, with me, Andrew Tuck. We start today in San Francisco, where earlier this year we spoke with the city's mayor, Daniel Lurie. With opportunities on the horizon for the city on the west coast of the United States, we dedicated episode 701 of The Urbanist to the Bay Area, with a special report from our very own Chris Lord. Here is a small taste of what they discussed.
This is a dream job. San Francisco, no offense to London and other places, San Francisco is the greatest city in the world when we're at our best, and we're going to get back there very soon.
When you ran for this office, you talked about three things that I thought were really interesting. You talked about accountability, service, and change. Just help us understand, I guess, a little bit in the context of San Francisco, why that message was important to you.
We all saw street conditions suffering and people suffering on our streets, and we wanted to change how we go after those problems. We need to step up and stand up more shelter beds, more mental health and drug treatment beds, and get people off the streets and into service. Change is something that this city is hungry for. Accountability, we have a $16 billion budget, and we are not getting what we're paying for. And people understood that. Our taxpayers, our residents deserve better. We're going to be more effective and efficient at how we spend those dollars. And then for me, it's always been about service and not about politics. It's about serving the people of San Francisco, making sure that we focus on San Francisco and not get caught up in anything beyond what we need to get done right here. If we can have public safety, if we can get our behavioral health crisis under control, if we can say to the world, we are open for business again here in San Francisco, we're going to come roaring back. And so those are three words, but really it's a mantra for our administration.
There's been a lot of ink spilled about the challenges that San Francisco has faced in recent years, some of it unfair, some of it with due cause. I just wonder, when you have, right there in Washington, D.C., you have an administration who quite often has used San Francisco as almost as a sort of representative of what they're pushing against and the challenges that the city has faced. Does that make your job even harder? I mean, what does that mean for you? It makes it even more uphill, doesn't it?
For as long as San Francisco has been around, people have wanted to take us on because we are leaders here. We lead in arts and culture. We lead in our values. This is the greatest city in the world when we're at our best. And we've had our downtimes before, and we've always come roaring back, and this is no exception. You go to a neighborhood like North Beach or Jackson Square, it is on the rise. We have green shoots everywhere. You know, our arts and culture institutions are top-notch, greatest symphony and arts, opera and ballet. We got William Stout books in Jackson Square. I mean, we have it all in this city. So the narrative has been pushed by people that have not visited our city recently. It's just a caricature on TV. Now, do we have our challenges? Absolutely. And I am clear-eyed about our challenges, but together we're going to overcome them, and we are going to show the world what we all know in San Francisco, and that is we are a world-class city, and we're not far off from being the best city in the world again.
One of the big challenges that the city's faced, certainly around COVID, was, frankly, so many workers went remote. This is a deep problem, I think, that many cities around the world, not just here in the US, but around the world, are facing right now. What kind of push and pull factors can you have a hand in to try and change that, to get people coming back through the day and then sticking around at night to spend their dollars in the area?
I mean, we were just named the culinary capital of the United States. Our restaurants are first class globally. And so, yes, the big issue is we have to get people back downtown. Our neighborhoods are doing incredibly well. Downtown is where we struggle. Companies like Gap have come back 5 days a week. Salesforce is back in 4 days a week. City employees, 70% of them are back 5 days a week. We're just putting in an effort and insisting that people are back starting April 28th, 4 days a week. So all 32,000 employees will be back in the office. That's going to be a huge step. And we want to lead by example and deliver high quality services. But companies, there was just an article about Databricks, a big company that's just now investing $1 billion over the next 3 years in San Francisco. AI, arts and culture, healthcare, UCSF, a world-class institution, all of these coming together, it's going to take all of it, but we're going to come back. And then nightlife, absolutely, critically important to delivering what we hope to deliver. And the mayor has the power of the microphone, and I'm going to use it every single time, and I'm going to celebrate what's happening in our neighborhoods and what is about to be unleashed in downtown San Francisco.
San Francisco Mayor Daniel Lurie there, speaking with Chris Lord for episode 701 of the programme. Next, we head inland to Denver, where an architecture firm has been making a greener urban environment for the Colorado capital. I spoke with David Gottschall, a principal at Terremoto, which had designed the 17th Street Corner Plaza, built to be a habitat as much for bees, insects, birds and animals as for humans. David began by telling me how his California-based firm came to work on this project in Colorado.
We quietly harbor a less conventional kind of point of view insofar as we believe that landscape architects or landscape designers should kind of mostly be local. I say that because landscape making is inescapably regional. And if you were to take me and put me in somewhere in Europe, for example, I probably wouldn't be very good at my job. And because we believe that landscapes should be by, of, and for like the creatures and communities they serve, it just makes good sense for landscape designers to be relatively local. And so this project entered our office through a side door. We had a working relationship with the owner or this client previously, and it had been a very healthy working relationship. So we simply went about the design and execution of this project with that skepticism, like very present and explicit, like in our hearts and conversations, and did a bunch of things that hopefully insulated the project from not being contextual or being irreverent of its place in the world.
Now, I would encourage people to go to your website and look at the pictures of this project. But we can describe it a bit for people because, first of all, when people think about landscape designers, already in their mind, they're probably thinking of something a little bit formal. Your work embraces nature in a more rugged way, a less formal way, and you try and use materials and plants that are either from the proximity of the site or not that far away. So perhaps first of all, you could just describe the location and what the ambition was.
The site is smack dab in the middle of downtown Denver, an extremely urban sort of environment surrounded by office buildings, essentially, and it's on structure, meaning the ground is not actually ground. It's built, which comes with a whole other host of implications. It's our belief as an office that landscapes should equally serve humans as well as the creatures with whom we share the planet. And interestingly, this project was a test case in doing exactly that. But in building this project, we really learned that the needs of an office worker are not that wildly different from the needs of, say, a honeybee or a butterfly or a bird, in that what we mostly want is to be able to be outside, enjoy the environment, have a sip of water, and kind of commune with nature. And to your point about like local materials, we initially began focusing on sourcing and utilizing local materials from an ecological perspective. It seemed like simply good logic to us that in order to keep the carbon footprint of our projects light, the materials should come from nearby, in that we mostly move stuff around in the United States on the back of big trucks. And the less those trucks are driving around, the lighter the carbon footprint of the project. Interestingly, taking this approach also inescapably imbues a project with a sense of regionalism. And so our projects, when we take this approach, which we basically monolithically do now, look like the place they are from, and there's kind of a sensibleness to that. And lastly, a tributary that wasn't necessarily one that we anticipated is that in using local materials, we're actually creating economic resilience within the places that we work. We're supporting local manufacturers and local builders, and we also get to see how they treat their people and to see the ecological quality of their minds or things like that. And so it checks a lot of boxes for us kind of taking this approach.
That was David Godshall from Terremoto there for episode 712 of The Urbanist. And I must say, one of my favourite interviews from the year. We're going to head to Istanbul now, where the Urban Cultural Gastronomy Events organisation, Tertulia, had held their latest edition. Monocle's correspondent in the city, Hannah Lucinda Smith, went along to find out how the organisation was inspiring its audience to explore new spaces.
That's the sound of a group of world-renowned musicians tuning up and preparing for their performance. But we're not in a concert hall. We're in a neighbourhood coffee shop in Istanbul on a Sunday morning.
Having a morning where you can invite people from the neighbourhood and the coffee shop can invite people from the neighbourhood, that's super important.
That's James Austin Smith. He's the creative director of Tertulia, a New York and San Francisco-based classical project that brings its performances to urban settings around the world. In previous years, it's gone to Reykjavik and Berlin. And this year, the project has come to Istanbul, bringing together musicians from the US, Europe and Turkey to perform both well-known works and compositions by local composers. And alongside events in some of the city's finest restaurants and bars, there was this performance, open to everyone, with the sounds of the coffee machine and the buzz of the city in the background.
These were the spaces for which this music was written. It was not written for a 1,000-seat concert hall or a 2,000-seat concert hall. It was written for an intimate coffee shop, an intimate salon, somewhere where they might have a meal. That is its natural habitat. So it comes alive in that way. Tertulia exists anyway in urban environments in New York and San Francisco, but there is an element of a deeper understanding of a city through moving through that city, experiencing different spaces, experiencing cuisine from that place, and then in the best of possible worlds like we've had this weekend, also music from that place, whether it's music being written today or music that was written 100, 200 years ago. So the idea is hopefully to create a more thoughtful and a more engaged interaction with an urban environment that you wouldn't have if the music weren't there. The music is the catalyst for that interaction and that engagement.
As the chamber orchestra, violin, viola and cello play works by Mozart and Schubert, passers-by heading home from their morning run stop outside to listen. Some parents bring their tiny children in to watch, and they're captivated. This is as far from both the usual classical musical experience and the usual sounds of Istanbul as you can imagine.
When you see the kids walking by, the motorcycle drives by, the bells go off nearby. In a way, that's music happening to us rather than us doing something to the music. The music is affecting all of us in a way, and we're placing it. We're giving it kind of a sense of place and a reality.
What are you looking for when you're choosing a place to go? What are the specific characteristics or qualities that you're looking for in a city?
Increasingly, for me, it's about layers. And I have to stop myself from kind of addressing each city in the same way, because of course they're totally different. But if you think about a city like Berlin and the history it has experienced, it's just an extraordinary way of engaging with a place. Interestingly, maybe happening kind of 100 years earlier than Berlin, right? If you think about Berlin, like its history of the 20th century versus Istanbul earlier. So I think it's looking for places that might be Istanbul more a little bit off the beaten path, let's say for our core American audience, and to give people an excuse to experience a place that they may not otherwise be inclined to do themselves. And for me, that's one of my favorite things when I talk to our audience members. It's like, well, I hadn't really thought to go there, but then I saw we were going, and I thought, why not? That's a great excuse to experience a place.
For Monocle in Istanbul, I'm Hannah Lucinda Smith.
Thank you, Hannah, for that great report. And you can find that one on episode 722. A lot of shows we've made this year. Up next, we're going to head to Barcelona to recall just one of the great conversations we had on stage at this year's edition of Monocle's Quality of Life conference. Myself and editorial director Tyler Brulé were joined on stage by Her Excellency Noura bint Mohammed Al Kabi to discuss how the UAE excels in soft power, diplomacy and bringing people together. I began by asking, given that the UAE was only founded in 1971, how her story and that of the UAE are so intertwined.
My personal story, starts in 1978. In 1978, I was born in Sharjah, which is an emirate in the UAE. I think what makes maybe my childhood kind of diverse is my mother is from the northern side and my father is from the eastern side of the UAE, which is Al Ain, which is an oasis town that is connected to Abu Dhabi, which is the capital. I studied my whole life in the UAE. Specifically, we were in Abu Dhabi. My father used to be in the military. And it was just for 1 year. It was during my junior high. We had to fly to the US. He used to study there. And it was in the mid-90s. And I don't know if you've witnessed the mid-90s in the US, the Bronco chase on a big screen. So like the first time in the country, there's a chase on TV. Is it normal in this country that they're showing us a chase? Of course, that's the O.J. Simpson case. And that by itself also opened us as a family to a new culture. And sometimes you're in a bubble back then when you're in the States with the news and everything that is. From a dissemination perspective, what is there in that continent. Studied back in the UAE. I worked in energy, I worked in the military, I worked in media and culture, and I worked in the parliament. And now I'm working at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So this is just a quick snapshot, but the UAE formation for me is luckily something I witnessed specifically in Abu Dhabi. My childhood was in a place called the Cultural Foundation. It's a beautiful Bauhaus kind of an architecture next to one of our old forts in Abu Dhabi. It's 200 years old. And yes, we are formed in 1971, and we're tribes. It's a country with tribes, 7 main tribes, 7 emirates. The ruling tribe in Abu Dhabi is Al Nahyan, has been there in Al Husn Fort, which is next to the cultural center, for the past 200 years. There's always kind of this beautiful thread line when it comes to the tribal element, and then you move fast forward, to the political changes in that part of the world and protecting the trade route from India to the UAE to go to Great Britain. So Great Britain, it was a protector of our coasts for more than 400 years. We were never colonized as a country. The Ottomans didn't reach the UAE. So there's no any signs of that. But currently we do have beautiful signs of archaeology that goes back to the ages of early Christianity.
When you think about the diplomatic mission, what are the key topics that you're talking about right now? When you think about the UAE out in the world, and again, you're talking about perceptions, many different views, whether it's economically, culturally, etc. What are you trying to push and get across?
Well, number one, it's a nation of ideas. The relationship of a diplomat shouldn't be transactional. It should be personal, it should be connecting people to people, and there should be respect with our differences. There are differences in many areas, in our belief system, in our culture, in our identity, but there has to be always a bridge. There has to be a way that we can conversate with one another. And I think we, unfortunately, live in a very polarized world. There's a zero-sum game that is happening. And how can you be in the midst of being able to carry such conversations and maybe be the middle person that takes that conversation from one point to another point? We also look at the idea or the point of diversification. And I'm inspired by the podcast I listened to on Emirates from Dubai to Barcelona, that in diversification we find our unity, and specifically in the UAE. I grew up in a classroom where we were just few Emiratis. I worked in an environment where mainly all of my bosses weren't from the UAE. And that by itself, we have a saying in Arabic, you tend to get used to something if you grow with it. So I think it's the ideas, perspective, is connecting people. How can you have that platform of connecting, individuals in one platform? And stop being transactional. Try to have a conversation, even if you hate the person in the room. So I think if we can put our feelings aside, because I think the future generation deserves a better earth than the one we have currently.
Her Excellency Noura Bint Mohammed Al Khabi there for episode 726 of the show. We're in Milan next, where earlier this year we reflected on 10 years of the landmark forest-cum-residential towers, the Bosco Verticali, with the building's architect Stefano Boeri. Monocle's design editor Nick Maniz caught up with Boeri, and in this excerpt of their conversation, Boeri began by describing the inspiration for the project.
It's strange. It's more an obsession than an inspiration. Basically, I was obsessed by trees also when I was a kid. And this real obsession was probably working on me. And honestly, I've tried many times to see how it was possible to combine this obsession with my profession as an architect. So this could be translated in a very banal way, simple way, in an attempt to put together living nature and the materials of architecture, which normally are, let's say, minerals, like stone, glass, concrete, and steel, and so on and so on. So I tried many times, and at a certain moment of my life, I had this opportunity to do it. And, I jumped at I found two developers who were extremely skeptical, but at the same time available to follow my crazy idea. And they were very coherent because they told me this is completely impossible and probably crazy, but, if you can answer to these very simple and serious technical issues in 3 months, you come back, we can do it. I did it. And then we started to design and then build. So that's happened in 2007.
So basically you had a limited time to respond and show that this was possible.
Yeah, I bunched a lot of friends, tried to find people who was expert in botany, and also in engineer, because it was quite complicated to imagine how to have a pot with 2 trees, 110 meters. But we tried to do it, and finally the two were saying, okay, I think you're right, let's try. And so we started.
But I think what I find so fascinating about it is this is an architecture built for trees.
Yeah, basically, yes. We are designing, building many other vertical forests in different parts of the world. And you are right saying that these buildings are basically building for trees. Since we start considering climate condition, then we select the plants, the species of plants that are more adaptable to this specific climate condition. And only at that moment we start to design the facade of the building in order to respect the life trajectory, the life expectation of every species of trees. So we treat trees as tenants.
So then where do people... actually, before we even get to people, the actual tenants maybe living inside these, there's also animals that are considered in this architecture?
Other animals, you mean birds? Yeah. Birds, in Milano, we have more than 20 different species of birds that are nesting there. And sometimes there are birds that are not used to stay in Milano. So it's really something unexpected.
Stefano Boeri there, speaking to Nick Maniz for episode 698. And finally, we head to Vienna to remember this year's World Tram Driver Championships, the first edition of this event to invite teams from outside of Europe to compete. Alexei Korolyov, who covered the 2023 European competition for us, we do love a tram, sent us this report from the most recent showdown, which took place in his home city.
Tram driving is thrilling enough in its own right, but imagine turning it into a competition. Avid listeners may remember the excitement of the 2023 European Championships in Romania.
That's a fine kick. That is a fine kick, and all the pins are down. All the pins are down.
This time, though, it was the sport's first ever World Edition, staged in front of Vienna's Grand City Hall, and the sense of occasion was higher still.
We have an anniversary this year, 160 years of the tramway in Vienna, and therefore we thought we have to make something really special. We said to ourselves, we participated at many tram EMs, European Championships. Let's make a tram World Championship.
Elias Nadmesnik is spokesperson for Wiener Linien, the city's transport operator. Team Vienna won in 2023, and though he doesn't know it yet, they'll win again here.
We are very excited to have teams from every continent. So we have participants from South America, from Rio de Janeiro. North America, it's San Diego from the US. We have Hong Kong from the Asian continent and Australia. And from Africa, we have a team from Casablanca in Morocco. And we have a lot of European participants as well. And altogether, we are 25 teams. And every team has 2 members, 1 female and 1 male, and everyone has to drive the whole course, so they have to have a teamwork.
Let's meet some of the competitors. This is Jasper from Team Rotterdam.
Many people don't think how important it is to be a tram driver and bring other people to work, to school, to the university, hospitals.
For you today, is it more about winning or just about taking part?
It's more of taking part and have a lot of fun. Of course, I hope we win, but the most important for me is the fun.
Next up, Fadwa from Team Brussels.
It's pretty amazing. We wasn't expecting so much people here, a big crowd.
When you first heard of the idea of trying to have a competition, what was your reaction?
Oh, we were like, is it like football there is for the tramway? Yeah, we was a little bit surprised and excited to be there.
This is Khawla from Team Oran in Algeria.
It's our first participation.
Wow. So how do you feel?
Not really good.
Yeah. And how long have you been a driver?
13.
So you're very experienced.
Yeah.
So you fancy your chances. You may win today.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
And here's Craig from Melbourne.
Normally when we drive our trams down Bourke Street in Melbourne, we don't have the people yelling out our names. But this has been fantastic. It's a surreal experience and we've had a ball.
There is regrettably no head-to-head racing, either at European or world level. But these contests are still spectacular enough to pull in thousands. And not just the locals. Here's Mark, cheering for Team Dublin.
Hi, I'm Mark. I'm here with my partner Millie, all my friends. We've travelled to Vienna just for the Tram Fest, I think. Last year we were in Frankfurt. We travelled to the trams for that as well. And we just decided to come again this year because we had such fun last year.
Do you love trams then?
Not really. It's just I don't know why we decided to do it, but I mean we kind of like transport and like nerdy stuff. So this like fits. We're not like huge on trams. It's just nice to do something a bit weird.
In the competition, each team took on 8 challenges, including the crowd favourite, tram bowling, using the tram to roll a giant ball into inflatable pins. New this year was tram curling, where drivers had to push a trolley to a precise stop. There were also reverse driving, target braking, and a stop-and-go run. In this one, the trick was to spill as little as possible from a water container fixed to the tram's front.
Well, it's Team Paris, as you can hear. Trying not to spill the water. They did.
As the day went on, reigning European champions Budapest held the lead for a while. Then Vienna moved ahead.
They can take first place now. The only one. The only one, yeah.
But in true sporting fashion, the outcome wasn't decided until the very last minute. Poland's Team Poznan looked set for victory.
Here's the joint, here's the second door. Oh, no!
But one small mistake, and it was all over for them. The winners, Vienna.
And Austria is the first champion. Congratulations.
As he celebrated, here again is Elias Nadmesnik of Wiener Linien with some final words.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. We wanted to be a good host. We wanted to win as well. It was a tight race at the end. Only centimeters that are the difference between winning and getting second.
Congratulations.
Yes, thank you so much.
For Monocle Radio in Vienna, I'm Alexei Korolev.
Thanks, Lexi. Ding, ding, ding. And that came from episode 728 of the show. And that's all for this week's episode of The Urbanist. My thanks to you, listeners, for coming on this journey with us this year. And we also look forward to bringing you plenty more stories from our cities as we plan ahead for 2026. As always, The Urbanist is produced by Carlotta Rebello and by David Stevens, who also edits the show. I'm Andrew Tuck. Goodbye, and thank you for listening, City Lovers.